Okay, be honest. How many times have you wished you could just wake up one day fluent in a new language without ever opening a textbook? Like, wouldn't it be amazing if learning English or Spanish could happen while binge watching your favorite Netflix series or scrolling on TikTok? If that sounds like a dream come true, stick around. Because today we're diving into whether you can actually learn a new language in this super easy, no study required way. So what exactly do I mean by lazy learning? It's honestly all about those methods that don't feel like studying at all. For some people, it might be watching a specific TV show. For others, it might be listening to a very catchy, very trendy song. And for even more people, it might be using a fun app like Duolingo. I know what a lot of you guys are probably thinking. It's not possible to learn a new language in a lazy way. You do have to put in the work. Yes, but at the same time, lazy language learning is rooted in science. And there is a term incidental learning that a lot of people use when they say, oh, I learned English because I watched a lot of American YouTube. My case here. Incidental learning happens when we pick up new information actively without trying to do so. It's like when you're listening to a song in a foreign language, let's say in English, and you can pick up a new vocabulary, you can pick up on some interesting phrases, and then a few minutes later, you're singing along. And it can even work with languages that we can barely understand. If you're familiar with this TikTok trend that is going around right now, it goes something like, Wakane pashigu, wakare wa sta. Like really the only word I know is sta, because it sounds like star in English. But that's exactly how incidental learning works. I'm not learning Japanese or Korean or whatever language this video is in, but I can still pick up on some interesting words here. And I know a lot of people have even made videos on TikTok explaining what all of these words mean, just because so many people walk around singing the song even without knowing all of this vocabulary, me included. And this approach really works because our brain is amazing at picking up patterns and making connections, even when we don't want to put in a lot of effort. And plus, when we're doing something that's enjoyable, and a lot of people love using TikTok, you know, it actually helps them learn better. They hear a trendy song, they want to see what all of these words actually mean, and they memorize them faster this way. And so yes, if you make all of these little changes to your daily routine to include a foreign language, effortlessly, okay, let's call it effortlessly, like switching your phone to English or watching TikToks only in your foreign language, or maybe only listening to music in your target language. You are creating this incidental learning. And that's why a lot of people use this example to show that yes, for them, it was possible to learn a language in a lazy way. Now that we're on the topic of making your life a little bit easier, I have to share something with you that has made my travel experiences easier and better. My level 8 luggage. And I want to say a huge thank you to them for sponsoring a portion of this video. Whether I'm going on a quick weekend getaway or a longer trip, their suitcases have become my absolute favorite travel companions. This is the luminous textured two-piece set, and just look at how sleek and sophisticated these two suitcases look. And beyond that, it's all about functionality. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of the wheels because they spin 360 degrees, and it makes packing and finding your stuff so much easier. I love how level 8 combines style with smart design. If you're ready to travel with comfort, you absolutely have to check out level 8. I've linked the suitcases I have from them in the description down below. And you can use my code Veronika10 for 10% off your purchase. Trust me, once you try it, you won't want to travel with anything else. Now let's talk about the role of immersion and how important it is when we talk about lazy language learning. You have probably already heard the idea that if you want to learn a language, you should just immerse yourself in it, you know? Immersion, immersion, immersion. So many people talk about it online, especially on YouTube. But what does it really mean? And most importantly, how does it work? So immersion is pretty much surrounding yourself with a language in your everyday life, and it can really help your language acquisition. It can be through watching TV or listening to music, or even just hearing conversations in your target language. And it works because when you're immersed in the language, you're constantly exposing your brain to new vocabulary, new grammar, some interesting phrases, even if you're not actively studying them. But here's where it gets super interesting and where a lot of people make mistakes. There is a theory called the comprehensible input hypothesis, and it suggests that we learn languages best when we're exposed to material that is slightly above our current level. And the mistake that a lot of people make, especially beginners and intermediate learners, is they choose something that is way too difficult for them. And then they wonder why the learning is not happening, because the level of understanding is just way too high. It is not comprehensible enough for them, for their current level. Obviously, in the process of learning a new language, you will be increasing your level, and so eventually you will be able to understand more and more and choose more difficult things, like more difficult movies or more difficult podcasts. And that's why the approach I personally always take at the beginning is I only use resources for language learners at the very beginning. When I'm a beginner, maybe when I'm like an early intermediate student, only for language learners, because I know that my level is just not high enough to understand everything that was created for native speakers. So if you start watching a movie in English and you realize that it's just way too hard for you, click off. It does mean that it is way too hard for you. Choose something else. Maybe it's going to be a cartoon. I remember when I was in college and I was studying Chinese, the cartoon that I was watching a lot was Peppa Pig, just because it was the only thing that I could understand and the only thing that I could use to learn all the useful vocabulary. I have a lot of friends who are trying to learn Spanish and they always tell me, Veronika, I tried to watch this telenovela and it was just way too hard for me. And I'm like, yeah, it is going to be way too hard for you because it was created for native speakers. If you're upper intermediate, if you're advanced, amazing, great, you should use this material. But please be very careful if you're a beginner and you already want to read Harry Potter in the original format. Believe me, it's gonna be very hard for you to do so. Okay, now let's talk about consistency over intensity, because I know a lot of people, when it comes to language learning, they realize that they haven't been really consistent and then they decide to do a 3-hour power study session. And then they take a break for another month or 2. Let's be real, when it comes to learning anything new, consistency beats intensity every time. It's like going to the gym and working out. It's a lot better to do it regularly, right? Than, deciding to buy new workout clothes and then go to the gym once in a blue moon. The same goes for language learning. A technique that is connected to consistency over intensity and that helps me a lot here is spaced repetition. Our brains are wired to forget things all the time, especially the things that we don't need or don't use. And that's why when you guys tell me in the comments, I forget the words that I learn, what can I do, how can I memorize vocabulary in a better way? Unfortunately, it's natural that we forget certain words over time. But if you review information at spaced intervals just before you're about to forget it, you're more likely to retain all of this vocabulary in the long run. And that's how I personally memorize all of my vocabulary and all of the grammar structures, to use this lazy way of learning instead of sitting with an open textbook and trying to cram all of this information in my brain and literally suffering as I do so. I use the app Anki, and honestly every single time I revisit the word, it really helps it stick in my memory better. And because again, consistency beats intensity, I review Anki every single day. And before you tell me, oh, I don't have enough time to do it every single time, you do, because it literally takes me 5 minutes. There is a timer in the app and it shows you how much time it takes you to do the full review. And it never takes me over 10 minutes to review my Anki cards every single day. And even if you're so extremely busy for this lazy language learning method, what you can do is habit stack. Let's say you are at the office and you have a lunch break and you're waiting for your coffee to be made. So while you're waiting, you can review your Anki cards, because sometimes it takes 5 minutes for them to prepare your coffee. So 5 minutes later, you will have all of your Anki cards done and you will have your coffee. So there are no excuses, just action. I think a very important thing I absolutely have to mention in this video are the limits of this lazy language learning. Unfortunately, when people hear lazy learning, they start thinking about, laying on the couch and binge watching their favorite favorite TV show without really paying a lot of attention because they're also doom scrolling on TikTok at the same time. And obviously, it doesn't really work this way. You're not gonna magically become fluent if you're not paying attention to the language you're learning. And as I said before, one common mistake that I see time and time again is choosing material that is way above your comprehension level. Starting with a show that your friend recommended, but your friend's English is advanced and your English is at the beginner stage. I mean, you're not gonna get a lot of value from watching the show. And most likely what's gonna happen is you're gonna start feeling demotivated because there are gonna be so many words you don't know, so many grammatical structures that are not your level at all. And it's gonna make you feel like you're not improving fast enough and that you just want to become advanced in 2 days, just like that. Remember, for learning to happen, the material should just be a little bit challenging, a little bit challenging. Think about it +1, right? This theory suggests that the material that we choose should be your current level +1. Only 1 level up, not 5 levels up and not 10 levels up. So just a bit challenging, but mostly understandable. Another misconception is thinking that lazy means that you can go days, weeks, months without practicing the language and still somehow become advanced. Guys, believe me, I did not become advanced in English because I wasn't doing anything. I did not become fluent in English because one day I decided to lay on the couch and watch The Office for 10 hours. I wish it worked this way. Consistency is absolutely key, and I know a lot of you might not like the traditional methods of studying, but you do have to engage with the language actively to learn it well. And then there is another issue of not really doing all of those little things that make a huge difference. Once you start reading a new book, you see all of the vocabulary that you really like and you would like to learn. And then you read another book and the same thing happens. You forget to transfer all of these words to Anki, so you didn't memorize them, so you didn't use them in your next conversation with a native speaker. And so the whole process starts again. I get it can be tedious sometimes to create all of those Anki cards and then revise all of them, but it makes such a huge difference. You're choosing the pictures that make it easier for you to learn this word. You're picking example sentences that work for your level and for your situation. A big part of how I memorize a lot of words in English and in Spanish is the way I create my Anki cards. They're all extremely personalized. Nothing is boring. Everything is tailored to me, to my needs, and my goals. So here's the bottom line. While lazy learning can be a great supplement to your language learning journey, it shouldn't be the main part of it. I'm a true believer of intentional effort and taking action because those two things have always worked for me. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and watching it up until the very end. If you liked it, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to learn more about the strategy of lazy language learning, I highly recommend checking out this video right here. There I talk about additional strategies that you will find extremely beneficial. So just click right here and keep on watching.